So typically I talk about resources that I think directly can help people healing from trauma. But today I was doing a podcast and we were talking about ways that we heal that might not be mm, like what you'd expect. So things outside going to therapy and reading the books about trauma. And I realized how much healing I've had in reading fiction, and I wanted to share some fictional books that aren't even directly about trauma that have made a huge difference in my healing journey and talk about why. And the first book is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is a dark gothic fantasy romance book that took off on Book Talk and still is doing really well in there, but for good reason. This book is about a woman named Elspeth who has a dark magical entity that's living inside of her head. And I think that sounds like trauma. And it shows how we have to learn how to coexist with this other part of ourselves. And in a beautiful, lyrical way, that's what Rachel does. And I talk so much about how with trauma, we feel like there's the us before the trauma and the us after the trauma, and how part of healing is starting to see those as the same person. And for that reason, One Dark Window is on my list. Okay, so this next one is kind of silly, but stick with me. All Systems Red by Martha Wells is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. And first off, sci-fi with a female author. Just go read it for that. Plus it's short, it's not a huge commitment. But the writing is just wonderful, and it follows a socially anxious, sarcastic robot as he navigates like feelings and what it means to have feelings and autonomy and identity, and what it means to live in a world where people feel like they can control you. And again, trauma, especially the kind of trauma we talk about a lot on this page, is a lot about control. And so I found a lot of healing in this because the main character, who is so well written, he's one of my favorite characters to read and follow. He'll have these moments of like clarity or these thoughts that just hit really hard. And it's like, yes, that is what it's like to try and navigate life and heal and laugh along the journey. So again, highly recommend this. It's short. It's an easy one to just dive into, even if you typically don't read sci-fi. Really, really fun. So this third book on the list is probably the most obvious why it belongs on here for anyone who's read it, and that would be the Way of Kings series by Brandon Sanderson, which is the opposite of the last book. This one is very large and much more of an investment to get into. But I don't know of another author who has written healing from mental health or mental health in general in a way that's as brilliant as Brandon Sanderson does. The series, Stormlight Archives, tackles mental health and all types of mental health in a way that shows so much care and attention, and really helps remove a lot of the stigmas that come with depression and anxiety and PTSD. I love this series so much that I have an entire section of my personal quote book where I just have quotes from this book that give me a lot of healing and a lot of strength to lean on. And even now, on really dark days, I'll think about these characters and draw inspiration from them. It's beautiful, and the last book in the first arc of this series came out not too long ago, and again, just really well done and really shows what the healing journey is like. So this last book is super near and dear to my heart, and probably the one that I don't know, I feel the most vulnerable sharing. This book has gotten me through a lot in the last few years, or this series, and that is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. So this book is a beautiful, whimsical, again, lyrical, very similar to One Dark Window, lyrical in the writing, beautiful world building, fantasy, where you follow Senlin, who is a mild-mannered teacher, as he enters the chaotic world that is the Tower, to find his missing wife. And he is an incredibly unlikable character for many people, but again, I think that's part of why I liked him, is you get to watch his journey as he perseveres through impossible situations and shows you that there's always a way forward. And this book really shows adaptability and resilience and what it means to stay true to yourself even as you change throughout your journey. Part of what makes this book so powerful to me is, again, the writing is just beautiful. Some of the best writing I've ever read. And there's a particular character named Volita, and without giving too much away, her journey seems very much like a subplot, but as someone who's experienced sexual violence and domestic violence, watching her and seeing her growth and hearing her perspective on things has brought me so much healing. Again, this is a book where I have quotes from it put aside in my personal quote book to draw strength from later. So, Senlin Ascends, the audiobook I really enjoyed as well. Stick with it though, this is a great series. So these are 4 books that have played a role in my healing journey, partially because of the strength they gave me, some of the processing of my own trauma I was able to do while reading these, but also a little bit of escape and getting to be whisked away into some fantasy or science fiction world. And we need that. Like, that's okay. That's okay to process and heal through fiction. I saw something at one point saying that the only way to learn is not through nonfiction. You can also learn through imagination, and that's what fiction does. So I hope that you found this video helpful or interesting, and if you've read any of these books, please leave a comment. If you're interested in any of them, go check them out at your local library, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks.